much housing can you actually afford? With some house prices falling, high inflation, and rising interest rates shaking up the property market, it's a tricky question to answer, but let's try and figure it out together. If I'm totally frank with you, at the beginning of my journey as a first-time buyer, I felt like my head was spinning. I was surrounded by bank statements and ingoings and outgoings, wondering if we'd ever be able to get the mortgage that we need. I know how stressful it is, so I'll try and keep it as simple as I possibly can. Now, we're not all looking to buy, so there's a buying chapter and there's a renting chapter, so feel free to toggle the timestamps below the video to find the part that's appropriate for you. So you're finally ready to take the leap and buy a home, but with everything going on, should you wait and see what happens to the housing market or just bite the bullet and go for it? Well, the housing market still has some momentum and prices have been climbing over the past year. Now, with mortgage rates surging and the cost of living crisis chipping away at household budgets, that growth is stalling, even falling in some areas. I mean, just listen to these numbers from Zoopla. The number of new property sales agreed fell by a whopping 28% in 2022. And sellers, well, they're having to accept an average of a 4.5% discount to the asking price to seal the deal. That's an average of about £14,100. It's a lot of money. You might be wondering, what's causing the house prices to fall? Well, it's mainly due to the squeeze on household finances from the cost of living crisis and rising mortgage rates. The Bank of England raised the base rate to 4.25% on March the 23rd, and it's the highest it's been since 2008. Analysts think it could reach 4.75% this year. Now let's break down what this means for you. If you're taking out a 2-year fixed rate mortgage with a 10% deposit, average interest rates are around 6%. On a 200 grand mortgage, that means that your monthly repayments will be a staggering £1,290. That's 50% higher than November 2021, when you'd be paying much closer to £900 outright. Well, the frustrating thing is that even though the house prices are falling, mortgage rates are rising, meaning that month to month it's just no cheaper. You know, when I first started looking for a house, I was pretty clueless about how much I could borrow based on my salary. But after some research, I found out that most lenders consider lending about 4 to 4.5 times a borrower's income. In some cases, you might even find that lenders are willing to go up to 5 times your income. And guess what? There are a few exceptional cases where you could borrow as much as 6 times your annual income. But to find these generous lenders, you'll probably need help from a specialist mortgage broker. My mortgage broker was an essential part of our buying journey. I sat there punching numbers into a mortgage calculator. But there's sometimes other things that are taken into account that you might not even think about. I know that I didn't. Now that you've got a rough idea of how much that you can borrow, let's talk about the factors that lenders consider when determining your borrowing capacity. Keep in mind that not all mortgage providers use the same calculations, but here are some common factors. Your income is a primary factor that determines how much you can borrow. Lenders want to see that you have a stable income and the ability to make your monthly payments. A good credit score shows lenders that you're financially responsible and less likely to default on your loan. Lenders assess your existing debts to determine if you can afford to take on a new mortgage. A lower debt to income ratio indicates that you have more room in your budget for a mortgage payment. The more you're able to put down on a house, the less you'll need to borrow, which may result in better mortgage terms and lower interest rates. Here are some tips to maximise your borrowing potential and afford the home of your dreams. Look for opportunities to boost your income, like asking for a raise, taking on a side gig, or pursuing a higher paying job. Although if you do take on a side gig or start freelancing, you'll normally need a couple of years of income statements to prove it's reliable income. You can improve your credit score by paying your bills on time, reduce your credit card balances, and Avoid taking on any extra credit. Reduce your debt to income ratio. Pay down existing debts like credit card balances to improve your debt to income ratio. Save for a larger down payment. The more that you can put down up front, the less you'll need to borrow and the better your mortgage terms will be. So with all that in mind, will house prices crash in 2023? Well, figures show that prices are starting to fall, and this decline is expected to continue into 2023. But nobody really knows how far it'll go. And as we've seen, lower prices doesn't always mean you'll get a cheaper mortgage. But hey ho, it's not all doom and gloom. Remember, the housing market's always changing and things might look completely different in a few years. So my advice to you is to stay informed, be patient, and don't overstretch just to buy. But if something comes up in your budget that you love, then don't wait in hope that a crash might be just around the corner, because none of us know what the future holds. Here are more insights and considerations if you're a first-time buyer, second-time buyer, and if you're looking to move up the property ladder. Apart from interest rates and house prices, several other economic factors could influence the property market. These factors include employment rates. High employment rates can boost consumer confidence, potentially increasing demand for properties. Conversely, high unemployment rates may lead to reduced demand, impacting on property prices. If wages grow faster than property prices, this could improve overall affordability, making it easier for first-time buyers to enter the market. Government initiatives such as Help to Buy schemes and lifetime ISAs can support first-time buyers and potentially stimulate the market. If you're a first-time buyer and you can afford to wait and save more for a substantial deposit, you could potentially access better mortgage deals and lower monthly repayments. If you're considering delaying your house purchase, remember that markets can fluctuate and there's no guarantee that prices will fall to your desired level. It's essential to keep an eye on market trends and be prepared to act when the right opportunity arises. If you're a second-time buyer or moving up the property ladder and plan to sell your existing property before buying a new one, consider the potential impact of market conditions on your sale price. A decline in property values may affect your ability to move up the ladder or secure a better mortgage deal. If you decide to buy a new property before selling your current one, you may need a bridging loan to cover the gap between the two transactions. However, bridging loans can be expensive and come with risks, so consider this option carefully. Let's get on to renting. If you're a first-time renter, you might be wondering how much of your salary should be spent on rent. Let's talk about the ideal rent-to-income ratio, how to create a budget, and some tips to reduce your rental costs. Now, how much you want to spend on rent is ultimately up to you, but making sure that you can comfortably afford your mortgage outgoings is essential. According to the ONS, that's the Office for National Statistics, a person on average income can expect to pay around 30% of their income on private rent, or even more in London. We'll use 35 to 45% of your take-home pay as a guide so that you can see the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to rental costs. So what does this mean for you? Well, let's work out your monthly outgoings to see how much you can afford for rent. To start, create a budget that involves food, travel, social activities, subscriptions, savings, and bills. Bills should cover council tax, utilities, just like your energy and water, TV licence, broadband, and digital TV services and insurance. Remember that bills may change when you move. Council tax could increase or decrease, and so could energy and transport costs. You can ask your landlord or letting agent if they have a rough idea of the cost for bills in your area. They'll probably have an average amount that they can provide you with. Now, subtract these outgoings from your after-tax wage. From the amount left, figure out how much you can afford to spend on rent and how much you can put into your savings. And always leave yourself some spare money for emergencies or seasonal costs, things like birthday presents or weddings or Christmas. If you've worked out your budget and you know your top end for spending on rent, you might not be able to live exactly where you imagined. Here are some tips to help you find a home to rent within your budget. Being flexible about location or choosing a different style of property can help you get more for your money. Renting further away from the centre of a city or town can sometimes be cheaper. For first-time renters, moving into a shared home can be an easy way to save money on rent and make friends. Splitting the cost of rent with someone can make it a lot cheaper and open up more options. Another option that you could look into if you've been turned away is finding a guarantor. Now, this could be a friend or a family member with a good credit score. It's an agreement which means that if you can't pay your rent, they'll step in and pay it. This gives landlords a little bit of extra security and will make them more willing to rent the property. Don't do it if it's going to mean that you're going to struggle financially and get into debt. No home is worth that. Renting in London is generally more expensive than the rest of the country. The average rent in central boroughs can be upwards of £1,500 per month. To save on costs, consider flat sharing or living further out and commuting in for work. Just remember to factor in your transport costs into your monthly budget. Navigating the uncertain housing market requires careful consideration of loads of different factors, including personal circumstances, property goals, market trends, and economic conditions. By weighing up the pros and cons, consulting with experts, and staying informed about market developments, potential buyers can make informed decisions about whether to buy now or wait for more favourable conditions. I hope this video has helped, and I wish you well with your new home, whether you're renting or buying. If you've enjoyed it, then like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.